After 3 o'clock session of the regular session for Cleveland City Council, Monday, March the 13th. I'll call the meeting to order and ask the clerk to please call the roll, sir.
Mayor Brooks.
Here.
Councilwoman McKenzie.
Here.
Councilman Estes. Here. Councilman Cassidy.
Here.
Councilman May.
Here.
Councilman Hughes.
Here.
Councilman Webb.
Here.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Here.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. As our tradition, we will begin with the pledge and our invocation today by Vice Mayor Johnson. Please stand for the pledge. Salute and pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Vice Mayor Johnson.
That's right. Father, once again, we thank Thee for this another day, for the opportunity to serve our community, and we just pray, Lord, for Your divine guidance as we go through our agenda items, Lord, that You bless us. And just thank You for blessings seen and blessings unseen, dear God, and for all that You do for the city of Cleveland. And we pray, Lord, now that You continue to bless the people, the employees of the city of Cleveland, and protect them and keep our community safe. In Your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Vice Mayor Johnson. We had an extended 1 o'clock session that took us right up to 3 o'clock, and thank you all for your patience today. Lots of good discussion. Next item on the agenda is to waive the reading of the minutes from the regular session last, which was February 27th, 2023. That does require a motion from the council.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the City Council of the City of Cleveland waive the reading of the minutes of the regular session of the City Council held on February 27th and approve them as written.
Second.
That's a proper motion by Vice Mayor Johnson, properly seconded by Councilman May. If there's no other comments or questions from the council, Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Aye.
Councilman May.
Yes.
Councilman Hughes.
Aye.
Councilman Webb.
Aye.
Councilwoman McKenzie. Councilman Estes. Councilman Cassidy.
Aye.
Carries 7-0.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. That motion passes. Takes us to item number 5, which is special presentations and public comments, which there are none today. Takes us to item number 6, hearing petitions and communications. Item 6A, today we will hold a public comment concerning request by Ben Castillo for the consideration of an ordinance to rezone 6.65 acres of property located at Old Tasso Road from light industrial to R2 low-density single and multifamily residential. This is on tax map 050 and was approved by our planning commission 9-0. I now declare this public hearing to be open. Mr. Varnell, if you'll guide us before we ask for public comments.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just basic situation here. This was property that was originally zoned industrial when the city first adopted zoning as a whole. The property at the front is level with Tasso, but as you go back, it starts going up real quick. It's not suitable for any type of industrial development. The owners who want to live at the top also want to develop down by Tasso Road, some townhome type development. And to do so, they would have to zone to R2. We supported it. It's next to R2. It made perfect sense based on topography of the land.
Great. Any questions from the council for Mr. Varnell? Great. Thank you, sir, very much. Would anyone now like to speak in, we'll now declare this public hearing to be open. Would anyone like to speak in favor of this rezoning request? Seeing none, would anyone like to speak in opposition of this rezoning request? And seeing none, I would declare this public hearing to be closed. Takes us to item number 7 on the agenda, which is the consent agenda. This was distributed, ladies and gentlemen, in your 1 o'clock meeting packet.
So moved, Mayor.
Mayor, go ahead. I have a question. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Councilman Casta. I have a motion by Councilman Hughes, but a question by Councilman Casta. Councilman Casta, you're recognized.
We didn't have a review of this. Item D, Joe, can we, in the Southeast Tennessee Development of Corrections, ARP funding, do they have $100,000? They have a way they're using that money? And I know in the past, as far as an audit and counting money and stuff, that we've asked questions and had some. Have they got things under control now? You know, we're funding money over there to them in that part. there's twofold question, I guess, on that part.
Yeah, on this is an item that the council had approved previously.
Right.
And this is more just the agreement on how to make sure the federal money is done correctly. So the question is that you've already agreed to this, and this is the agreement on how to do that. The second question is, I'm not aware of any recent concerns with that organization.
I knew there was accounting, but they didn't have an accounting issue, that wasn't programmed, but they didn't have it updated. They were still keeping stuff longhand, I think.
That would be more of a question for Demetrius, but I'm not aware of anything that causes us any heartache.
Okay, that's all I have, Mayor. I just want to make sure.
Second.
All right, so proper motion by Councilman Hughes, properly seconded by Councilman Estes. We've had discussion. Any other questions or discussions from the council? Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Hughes.
Aye.
Councilman Estes.
Aye.
Councilman Webb.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Aye.
Councilwoman McKenzie.
Aye.
Councilman Cassidy.
Aye.
Councilman May.
Aye.
Carries 7-0.
Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Takes us to item 8, which is unfinished business, which we have none today. Takes us to item 9, which is reports from council members. We begin today with Councilman Hughes. You're first.
I finished. Yeah, thank you for belated gratification.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Webb, you're recognized.
No, sir.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
No, sir.
Councilwoman McKenzie.
Yes, sir. I would just like to say thank you to Tommy Myers and Public Works. I've had some requests of things we've been talking about the last couple of weeks, people bringing in trash from other areas and just a lot of dumping over off of Smith Drive, Arnold and Phillips Street. And when that was called in, they were so gracious to just come out and take care of it immediately, and I want to say thank you.
Well done. Thank you, Councilwoman McKenzie. Councilman Estes.
Quick question for Parks and Rec. Patty, pull-up bar repair and then pull-up bar expansion, did that get done on
The repair bid.
the repair did?
And
Okay,
Joe and I talked about the expansion.
okay. Is that gonna take place then? Okay. That's all, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Cassidy, you're recognized.
Yes, Mayor, I do have one question. I wanted to, Joe, we brought it the other day when we talked about the development over there off behind Robin Hood Drive, that fencing that we were supposed to, I guess it's been sitting there for 3 years now, to the good people of the 3rd District and I guess to the large too that represent. We got 2 more businesses in there and we haven't moved that yet. I know that the bond was supposed to be called. Can you update us on what's going on with that? Because I know when we do other projects like G-Town on Georgetown, they had to complete all that stuff, the barriers, the trees and everything before we gave them occupancy. Now we've gotten 2 more in there. If you look at it, go by there. And I've got pictures too, I'll be happy to show, but I'd rather not, but when we're gonna participate, do that or take care of that on that for those people?
Well, I think that we did ask for the bond, to pull the bond, and I don't believe we've received that money yet.
No, they're still fighting it.
So they are still fighting it with the bank on that. I think that a good development is that the large piece of property in the back has been sold. And we've told them, they also have some other issues with stormwater that before they get any approval or sign off on anything, that they have to get that buffer in.
Well, you got one business that backs up to it right now, that we took the fence down. And Chris, will you put the pictures up, please? And I think pictures, that shows a lot. And I just, these people, I feel for the people of 3rd District, and I like to see this thing done in the next couple of months, because them sitting out there with the lighting, that's the fence back there behind it. You go to the next one, that tore down. You can see the exposure back there on that part. Go ahead, Chris, just go through them, if you don't mind. You can see there that the fence is laying over on that place for the back in the back there, and they did put a water drain there, but there's still no barrier in between as far as noise and lighting. Go ahead. And this is the back of the building that backs up to the property that doesn't have anything on it. No walls, no trees, you know, as far as,
It has a buffer on it.
there is no buffer on that behind it. That's what they took down.
They planted trees. The
Huh?
trees- They planted buffer trees back there.
And
That's all
we,
that's required.
Is that all that is required in that?
That's what's required.
and we requested that.
Well, shame on us as a city to put something like that in my backyard. I mean, I wouldn't be happy with that. It's not in my district, but I wouldn't be happy with that. We had a fence up before, now they said trees is all you need to have now.
We requested to the engineer, I think it was Ben, is to put back the fence, and they took it down.
We asked for the fence, the developer put the fence up instead of the trees, but the trees are what's actually required in the buffer.
Yeah, and you got lighting back there in the back of it, that light pole back there where the house is at. I don't know how that light is projected down, but there's, you know.
The only time a fence is required is if you're shorting, if you're reducing the buffer, and they chose not to reduce the buffer. Those trees will grow in, they're just small, that meets our ordinance.
That's with the plan we approved, council approved.
That's just with the ordinance you approve.
We approved the plan when that whole thing came developed. That was the plan that was approved with that
Yeah,
plan.
they didn't show.
It
a
didn't,
fence in
didn't
there.
show buffer, didn't show
No, it showed
a wall
buffer.
or,
It showed our buffer that, like we require for everything else.
The company that owns it, what was the name? Lacan, they're happy to put up a fence, and they did put up a fence at one point until it was damaged. And then, they sold this piece of property, and we, impressed upon them that we think it should be a fence, and they chose differently.
well, when they put the fence on, correct me if I'm wrong, they actually put it on the border. They actually put it on the people's property. They didn't even keep it on their property. Am I right?
The reason they took the.
Did they put the fence on people's property?
They put it 40 foot on the actual doctor's office's property. They didn't put it on the property line. They should have went to the property line, but they didn't.
They didn't?
So they had to take it back down because it was in their parking space. So they took it down because it was in their parking space.
I just think they're coming up short. I think the people in Robin Hood, I don't even, that district I'm in, but.
We haven't heard from anyone on Robin Hood.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Cassidy. Councilman May.
No, I don't have anything.
All right. Joe, I've got to state for the record, in case anybody's listening, I sent a family member of the Robin Hood Drive to your attention. God knows if that family's listening. I want them to know that I did send that to you.
I've never seen it.
All right. It will be resent. That takes us to item number 10, new businesses and ordinances. 10A, zoning ordinance 2023-8, rezoning 6.6 acres of property located at Old Tasso Road from light industrial to R2, low-density single and multifamily residential, includes a tax map 50. It was approved by the Planning Commission 9-0. It does require a motion from the council.
So moved.
Second.
Proper motion by Councilman May, properly seconded by Vice Mayor Avery Johnson. Any questions, comments, or concerns from the council? Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman May.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Aye.
Councilman Hughes.
Aye.
Councilman Webb.
Aye.
Councilwoman McKenzie. Councilman Estes. Councilman Cassidy.
Aye.
Carries 7-0.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Motion passes. Takes us to item B under new business, which is Resolution 2321, approving the amended rates and modification of service with Waste Connections of Tennessee Incorporated for solid waste collection services. This is in your packet on pages 33 through 38. It was discussed at the 1 o'clock work session, and this action will require a motion from the council.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve this resolution.
Second.
That's a proper motion by Vice Mayor Johnson, properly seconded by Councilman Hughes. Are there any questions, comments, or discussions from the council?
Mayor,
Councilman Cassidy?
I just want to reiterate what Dr. Estes spoke about. It's a great deal. Doug, we appreciate you guys doing that, because we went out to bid, it would be $12 more. Plus, citizens need to look at too, they're gonna get a trash can out of this too. If you do the math on the trash can, 75, $60 for the year, so you're getting a new trash can on that part. And I appreciate them stepping up and doing this and being a partner with the city, even though it's an increase. We've seen increases all over, with fuel, food, eggs are more expensive than meat now. So it's crazy where the market's going, so that's all I have, Mayor.
Councilman Webb?
Well, not necessarily a part of the motion, but I think it would be a good time when we start notifying the public about this, and particularly any publications that Waste Connections puts together for that we also remind the citizens about the rules for debris pickup, and remind them at that time that it's only once a week, it's not commercial, it's residential only, and only supposed to be put out certain time before. It'd just be a good time to add that to the information.
And only city, not.
And only city.
Councilman Webb,
Yes, sir.
we'll be happy if you'll supply the intel on the sheet of paper, put that in our packets when they go out on the streets with the new carts.
Okay.
Just supply us the printed material, and as our people are putting them together, we'll put that one in there.
That'd be great. You can never have too much information.
Oh, absolutely.
Councilwoman McKenzie, did you want to make a comment for the
I just
record?
said and state in there that it's city trash, not brought in from the county, as we've been dealing with.
All right. Any other comments or questions? We have a proper motion by Vice Mayor Johnson, been properly seconded by Councilman Hughes. We've heard from 3 different council members. If there's nothing further, Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Johnson,
Aye.
Councilman Hughes,
Aye.
Councilman Webb,
Aye.
Councilwoman McKenzie,
Aye.
Councilman Estes, Councilman Cassada,
Aye.
Councilman May.
Aye.
Carries 7-0.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. That motion passes. It takes us to item C under new business, is the new item requested by, or suggested by Councilman Cassada for the Raider Drive building, as was mentioned by City Manager Fivas at the 1 o'clock session. Councilman Cassada, did you want to begin the discussion on Raider Drive?
No, I think that Joe had a comment about Raider Drive. I just want to make sure he had a proper thing he could remind us.
Yeah, we have the keys. Just want, you want us to give the keys to the schools? How do you want us to proceed? There's people that are calling and asking about utilization, who should answer those questions? And I think a lot of them have been answered or addressed, but I just want to make sure that everyone's on the same page before we do anything.
I think, go ahead.
I don't have a problem giving the keys to the city, school system. I think the city needs to keep a set too, in case some way we need to get into the building at certain times, whatever. But I would also ask that the city schools, if they could, allow us to have the drive-through used for taxes and things like that. I would like to see them help us out with that, to make it more convenient for people to pay their bills and stuff instead of coming downtown. I think it makes a lot more sense on that part. That's the only thing I have, Mayor. I'm not making
Certainly.
a motion or anything.
I think, any other comments or questions from the council before I share my comments? Or
Well, I understood that it would belong to the school system.
I think
Building.
the final motion was that they would rent it from us or lease it from us. We would maintain the deed, and I believe Councilman Estes, was it 18,000 a year?
So I asked Mr. Kimball this, and Mr. Kimball, if I say this wrong, we own the property for the mutual benefit of the school system, or something like that was the language you used.
The deed that was prepared doesn't say that, but that was y'all's motion. That's what we discussed at the meeting. I think Councilman May's recollection is correct that you would put it, the school was gonna give you a plan about the use of the building.
That's right. And pay for the,
And that was part of the motion, they would pay you $18,000 a year. Had they provided their plan to use the the building, because what you need to know is, they're gonna use the entire building, for example, for educational purposes. If they're not, they may have some other ancillary use for the part that they're not. So their plan they were gonna give to you would be important. If they haven't given that to you, I would suggest that
So I
would be
thought-
the next
So-
appropriate thing.
I was under the, I could be very wrong, the plan was part of the first one that lost 3-4, vote 3-4. My substitute motion was, they pay us back, they get it all. It was not part, and yeah, I added in the 18,000, so we wouldn't, because it made sense to me that we would be taking something off the tax rolls. And that didn't seem fair, because that's what the annual tax rate was. So I added that in on the substitute motion. It wasn't part of, a lease or anything else. What's in the record is what matters. My intent, a month removed from this, is, it's the schools. We give it to them, let them decide.
That's the way I understood when I voted.
I have a question about that.
Councilman McKenzie?
If we give it to the school, are we talking about the building, or are we talking about all the property, because there's extra property around that building? So what are we talking about with that?
Before I answer, Councilman Hughes had a question.
Well,
For a
I was
statement.
gonna say, we shouldn't charge rent because they're gonna be paying the taxes. So was it 16,000 or 8,000, what?
Once the deed is recorded, it becomes tax exempt. There are no-
There
Yeah,
are-
well, okay, but, at this point, if they're gonna be in charge of the building, now it's my understanding, to start with, that the city was gonna have the building, and the school system's gonna move in and actually retrofit it for their uses, as well as rent to anybody else who wanted a portion of it.
That is
Am I correct?
I think that's what Councilman Estes and Councilman May and Councilman
Okay.
Kessler all shaking their head.
But,
Let me finish. I think what Councilman Estes was talking about was the replacement of the lost taxes when it comes off the tax rolls. It's not taxable now that it belongs to the government.
Okay.
It's tax exempt.
that's right.
In additionally, they have reimbursed the city, or so that's my understanding, Mr. Case can tell you if I'm wrong, the money that you paid at closing, which was part of the agreement. And you're correct, Mr. Taylor did say they had a plan to renovate the property.
What I think we should do, the building they'll use, the parking they have, but there's 9 acres there. And we may have use for a corner to put up a building in the future. So some of that acreage would be the city acreage instead of the school's acreage.
I wasn't at closing, and I'm sorry, I haven't seen the documents. 9 acres? No.
Is that not correct?
No.
I think it's 7.
I'd have to look at the plan, I don't think it's that big.
I think it's 7.
And much of that is the building. And that's a big building.
Well, you got that
Yeah.
The building has a large footprint, we can
Well,
get you the plan.
And let me see if I can, first of all, answer your question, Councilwoman McKenzie. My understanding is the deed is now, and the agreement with the school system is that it is their building. We are bequeathing it to them for their use as voted by this council.
All right.
But the school board is open to the agreements and discussions that we had had prior to that. One of them is, to Councilman Cassidy's point, the ability for the drive-through to be used by possibly tax payments with the county, possibly tag payments and purchases, and a third agreement with a Cleveland Utilities that they would have a revenue stream from Cleveland Utilities for people to pay their utility bills at the drive-through. A fourth agreement or discussion was with the 911/EMA, that they would have some square footage in the building to be decided by the school board, that they would also have a revenue stream. The idea was that this building would be actually able to have a generation of profit or revenue by these different entities. Now that would be going to the school board because this council voted for that building to be theirs. As far as the acreage outside of the building and around the perimeter, that is out of my purview. The one request that I did ask our city manager is how quickly we can get the fence down so that events at the Greenway Park and all
High
around
school.
Raider Drive, all that fence
Ball
and the
games.
gates, and Mr. Fivas indicated that he was ready to do that as soon as
Yeah.
possible. That was the only discussion.
Mayor, let me say one thing. I'd like for us to look at the property and see if we have a use, if our city would look at the property and see if we have a use in the future for any part of that. And
You're talking
and
about
bring it-
vacant land?
I'm talking about vacant land.
Or parking lot.
Yeah, there's a parking lot back in the far corner, on the
Not
left
talking
corner.
about green space
Yeah.
next door.
But
We
the,
don't
but
own
the
that.
parking area around,
Do what?
of course,
We don't
that's
own
the
green
schools.
next to it.
I didn't think.
John,
But if we have a use for that, we ought to be able to put that to,
John, the property
Use in
is
the
owned
future.
by, the city owns the property, correct? The building and stuff. We just give the city schools the use of that, but we could allocate and do stuff to the property.
The way the deed is right now is the city, because there was this question of the $18,000, we didn't know if that was a lease, we didn't know what that was.
yeah.
So the city owns the building and the land right
Correct.
now.
Yeah.
Waiting on you guys to make a determination. So we have it all, and we just need to square which, if, the options are, we could change the deed and say for the use and benefit of the schools, we can, whatever it is, and I think, to answer your question, that's where it is right now, on the deed, we own it all.
Right.
As far as the transaction from Forest, because the transactions was from Forest to the city, and now we have to figure out what that relationship is to the schools.
Well,
Yeah.
my vote, when I voted, I assumed that when we got it, that we would give the title to the school board. They would own it. It would be their building.
We agree.
Including their lot. You know, if you wanna build a building, Councilman Hughes, go put it on Cherokee, Candies Creek, Cherokee. Go put it at Mayfield's parking lot. It's the same thing.
No, it's not.
Yes,
It's not
it's
the same
exactly the
thing.
same thing. It's their,
No, it's not.
it was for their
Not what I'm
benefit of
talking
their
about,
use.
it's not. We may have a use for a corner of that property in the future. That's all I'm asking. Tell them, let the city take a look at it and see if we
The
have
intent of my
a need
motion
of that.
Was laid out perfectly by Councilman May. It is for the schools. Let them decide. And
I'm for that. I'm for the
Let
school.
them
The school
decide.
has the building.
we need, and you know what, the
And-
parking lot is part of the building, it's part of the deed, it's
The
part of
parking
bond.
lot
We
is,
bought the
but
whole
there's a
thing.
corner there that we possibly could use. And I'd like for the city
What corner? What-
staff
what corner?
to look at it.
What
Let them look at it, Bill. You know,
I need
let
you to
them
what
look at
corner.
it.
Explain.
yeah.
There's a lot more corners in other city school properties.
I'm not
than on
talking about
Raider
other
Drive.
cities.
What
This
corner
is,
of the property?
this is not a school. This is an office. This is what it is, an office. And we have the latitude to say right now how it's gonna be used.
That's not what we laid out. We
Yeah.
said, you pay for
No,
it, we're
that's-
gonna give it to you.
Absolutely.
I'm not gonna go back.
Absolutely. We're talking about the building and the parking adjacent to it.
That's very two-faced. That's not.
Mhm.
Well, let's do this. The original question was who gets the keys? And there was a statement by Councilman Cassada that the school board should be allowed to have keys and access as well as a set kept for the city.
Yes.
And I think that that is the direction that this council needs to indicate today to the city
If we
manager.
don't own the building, why do we need keys?
Correction, we do own the building as of today until the deed is changed.
Well, let me say this. I'm still asking the city to look at that and see if we have a use. And I'm one councilman, this is another one. I have an idea. I'd like for the city to look at it and see if we have a use.
The intent of my motion was the entire property under the deed to go to the use and betterment of the schools, not for us.
So what we
I
can
don't
do,
remember the entire property.
what we can
I
do,
remember the building.
what we can do, Councilman Estes, is allow staff to look, but it will have to come back to this council for a vote,
Sure.
and it will have to pass with a
Absolutely.
majority of anything that we do going forward.
Absolutely.
To look at what, Mayor?
I can't
Then
figure out.
why say that staff can do that? Let's go with what we originally laid out in the motion. Give it all over the schools, be done with this. Why go that route, have in the paper, have the whole community thinking, oh, this is great. And now, we're gonna look at this. Maybe we wanna change the deal. That's not how we should do it.
We're not changing the deal.
No, yeah. I
They've
mean,
got the
I want
building
this-
and they have the parking. Just because you're saying we're changing the deal, that doesn't mean we're changing
The one who's
it.
saying that is.
No,
confused.
it doesn't. I wanna see what it says, the property
Can you help
and the
us?
building.
I can say this,
I might be able to help this discussion.
certainly.
I'm looking at the plat, with Christine, I pulled it up off Title Searcher, which is the online version of the Register of Deeds office. That part, that's lot two, lot one of that plat, the entire area, including the building and the parking and all of it, is only 4.53 acres. If you look at just what's already marked as parking in the building, it's the vast majority of that tract. I'm glad you showed me.
That's why I'm asking. There is.
So there's not 7 acres there?
4.5.
No, I think,
No, the other 3.7 already belongs to the city, that's where the Greenway Park is.
Oh, okay.
This is can you read that? It's kinda hard to see. See, it's only 4.5.
he thinks that.
Yeah, I see.
Okay. This is already, that part.
So the other 3 acres
Already belongs to the
already
city.
belongs to us.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
You are.
So there is no extra property. It's basically all of the building.
Councilman Hughes, are you okay with rescinding your request for staff to look?
Yeah, I'm fine. I thought there was about 9 acres, but there's 7 acres there, and the city has 3 of them.
Yeah, they'd only.
So
four
that's fine.
Yeah, they'd
yeah.
only.
All right, so we have agreed, school boards get a set of keys, city keeps a set of keys,
No. Why would we keep a set of keys?
because the deed right now says
But
city of Cleveland.
Yeah, I mean, we can get that changed in a couple hours.
Once the deed is finished, do we need a set of keys? I'm asking the mayor.
We do not.
One thing is, and I'm not trying to complicate this, but somebody needs to make sure this building is insured, whether it's on our insurance or the school's insurance. It's probably already done.
It's currently on our insurance. With this transaction, we would shift it to the school's insurance.
Yeah.
So with this vote, then the school would completely own the property, the city would not own it at all.
Wrong.
Wrong.
The city owns it for the benefit and the use of the school system, just like all the other properties.
Yeah.
So would that not be a reason to keep keys?
No,
No,
we don't have a key on our vote.
no, not until
But it
it
still stays
transfers
the
over.
property of the city.
Correct.
Not until it transfers over.
If the city has a need to use the parking lot for an event at Greenway Park, is it the schools that make that decision whether people can use that parking lot?
I think they'll be open to that, Joe, and I think they'll use it for the football games, and they'll,
I'm just posing.
So
a
here's
question.
what they do now. On the large events at Greenway Park, like the Bacon Festival, or whatever they call it, Bacon, they let everybody park up at the high school already.
Yeah.
They're gonna be much more amenable, Every big event at Greenway Park, the high school is more than accommodating, let's.
And my discussions with Dr. Dyer have been removal of the fence so that everyone can park freely as quickly as possible, whether it's a city event, Greenway event, or school event.
football game, yeah.
Yes, and then that would be their decision.
Okay. All hearts and minds clear? I'm looking left, I'm looking right. All right, takes us to announcements. The next,
So I just wanna make sure.
all hearts weren't clear.
I wanna make sure. We are changing the deed to the use and enjoyment of the school. They will be responsible for the insurance. We'll give them the keys. And at that point, we cease to have any input into what goes on in that property.
I would ask for the use of for the drive-through, Joe. I would have a
No,
conversation.
no.
Yeah.
Let that be a school decision.
Okay, well, I didn't say that, I'm just asking if the school will
Then you
allow
go
us.
ask the school.
There are discussions,
That's what I'm doing.
there are discussions right now with those
You're not
entities.
asking for us.
There are discussions right now with those entities and Hal Taylor. Those discussions are happening
There are more
now.
discussions than those going on in
Uh,
that building, and I have said, leave me out.
I think this is a great direction. It is now property, or for the use and enjoyment of the Cleveland City School System, and they can contact Dr. Russell Dyer and Mr. Hal Taylor. Congratulations on your new building. Takes us to announcements. The next city council meeting will be held on Monday, March the 27th in this chamber.
Mayor,
Councilman Webb, you're recognized.
to change that deed, does there need to be a motion from this council?
No, we've already made that.
It-
We've already voted that.
I did not prepare it. Had I done so, that's how it would have read based on what y'all had said.
Yeah.
But it has the lease language,
But we have this uncertainty,
and you can't lease something if they own it.
that's right, because of this 18,000, that was the question. So if that could be fixed.
And that's still good and everything's good. But the question that Ken asked,
Uh,
Yeah.
Sure, that wouldn't hurt, for clarity, if nothing else.
All right, so there has been a clarification put forth by legal counsel that this council, it would be beneficial if there was a motion to modify the deed that would now state for the use and benefit of the Cleveland City School System.
So moved. Second.
That is a proper motion by Councilman Hughes, properly seconded by Ken Webb. Are there any questions from the council on this motion? Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Hughes,
Aye.
Councilman Webb,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Johnson,
Aye.
Councilwoman McKenzie,
Aye.
Councilman Estes, Councilman Kessler,
Aye.
Councilman May.
Aye.
Carries 7-0.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. That motion passes. Again, next meeting, Monday, March 27th in this chamber. If there's no further business before the council, we're adjourned.